about anal. 8 anal sex stories. Virgin Anal. Sex Erotica. Threesome Erotica collection. Written by Tori Westwood, Connie Cuckquean and Kimmy Welsh. Narrated by Sierra Kline, Kelly Morgan, Edie Olliver and Talula Rouge.
Lab Test Anal Sex. Anal Brats 4. Anal Sex Erotica, Age Gap Erotica. Dr. Carter was a scientist. It sounds crazy, but somebody has to be. It's not as glamorous as it sounds, and it mainly involved a life of solitary testing in bland, expressionless laboratories for the major drug companies in America. I knew him as our close neighbor growing up, and I was always drawn to the notion of following in his footsteps. The upshot for me, as a budding scientist myself, was that after years in the company, he was allowed to elect his own assistant. In good old nepotistic fashion, he, of course, wound up employing me, his 19-year-old neighbor. I absolutely aced the interview. I'm not kidding. I took it seriously. I wanted to make it there on merit as much as possible. The other applicants didn't seem up to much when I spoke to them beforehand, but I was still sure not to reveal our relationship. The up-tops didn't care who he employed. Dr. Carter had done such great work for them over the years and wound up making them an incredible amount of money in the process. His testing had paved the way for a lot of products that you'd regularly pick up at the local pharmacy or even the local drugstore. His work had helped get shampoos, deodorants, sleeping tablets, and all kinds of different products into the households of America. At first, my day mainly involved making coffee, but as the weeks went by, he afforded me greater responsibilities. I started by laying out the various chemicals, liquids, and compounds that he'd be using that day. Then I got to weighing and measuring the quantities, before finally being allowed to carry out my own experiments. He kept a watchful eye, of course, but he was gradually offering me greater independence, as though he was training me up to be his replacement. At 42, I think he had a lot of years of work left, but who knows? Maybe he was planning an early retirement. One of the other things I'd started doing around the lab was playing a few practical jokes on him. I made sure they were never anything too serious. It was a dangerous environment, after all. But Dr. Carter seemed to enjoy them, and I certainly got a kick out of looking at his bewildered face. A favorite of mine was to line the inside of his goggles with black marker. One time, I'd managed to keep a straight face when he took the glasses off, and he'd wound up with a black mask outline on his face for the whole day. He looked like the Lone Ranger. It was so funny. Eventually, he started to get me back, and soon there was a tit-for-tat kind of dynamic going on that really spiced up the day. I found myself becoming closer to him than I ever imagined, and I think it's fair to say our relationship transformed in those first few months of working with him, even more than I ever imagined it could. I'd been learning more and more about reactions, and that day, I decided to play a prank on him. Being responsible for laying out his chemicals in the morning, I committed the cardinal sin of deliberately mislabeling some of them, knowing that the combination of a particular powder and a particular chemical would result in an impossible, harmless, gushing, endless froth. I waited a little ways behind him as he started to mix them, and I marveled as the chemical reaction erupted before our eyes. The greenish froth blasted up out of the beaker and bombarded his face. He turned away to splutter, covering the top of the beaker with his hand and causing more of it to fire out under the pressure and splatter his lab coat. I started to laugh nervously afterwards as Dr. Carter put the pieces together slowly, wiping the froth off his face with a twinkle in his eye.
"Amy, was that you?"
he said.
Amy.
He rushed me playfully, grabbing me and smearing the harmless froth across my face as I struggled. I giggled against him, feeling the strength in him as he jostled and cajoled me. I was breathless as I stared into his face. Then there was a sudden chemistry between us, in which we both looked into each other's eyes and saw something.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?